Hey, this is Justin from J Foster Designs. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is actually my very first graphic design YouTube video. So bear with me a little because I'm learning as I go. But my channel is dedicated on helping you dive deeper into your graphic design. So whether that's Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, or different things like that, I'll be covering as much as I learn along the way. Today we'll be in Photoshop and we'll actually be covering a lesser known tool called the mixer brush. And I actually didn't find out about this tool until recently. So I wanted to cover it in today we're going to be learning what it is, how it works, and how we can create 3D abstract artwork like this and like this. So let's get started. So here I am in Photoshop and I have two pictures imported. I have my layers panel here on the left just because it works better for when I'm opening like the properties panel, and later on when I'll be opening the paths panel. But for now, I have a blank white layer and two pictures imported. So what I'm going to do first is go to you can press B to get to the brush tool and click and hold it, and you're going to see brush tool and the other brush type tools. Mixture brush tool is right here. If you don't see it there, you go down to this three dot menu right here and you go to edit toolbar, and on the right side are tools that are not active and on the left side are tools that are active. So what you want to do is scroll down to where your brush tool is and grab your mixer brush tool from over here and just drag it over there under the brush tool and click done, and then you'll have that tool there. You can also add other tools that you might not even have known were there. So anyway, hopping right into the mixer brush tool. So the mixer brush tool, like the brush tool, can be used to paint, but it works differently because it actually samples pixel art. It doesn't just sample solid colors. So the regular brush tool, you can sample solid colors, black, white, red, etc. But the mixer brush tool actually works with multiple colors and it can sample actual pictures. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go to my watercolor art, and right now I have sample all layers off because you will run into some problems if you have that on and try to sample from a layer. It'll sample from anything that's overlapping that layer. So when you're doing like composites and things like that, you'll get like transparency and things like that on your brush. But anyway, I'm going to go to my watercolor layer, and with the mixer brush tool select, I'm going to hold Alt or Option on the Mac. I'm just going to click on that watercolor. All right, now I'm going to go up here to one of my blank layers, and I'm going to paint with the mixer brush tool just a random swirl. And I'm going to let you see what happens here. All right, now as you can see, it's a bit slow. My resolution might be high. Let's see what we got going on here. Yeah, we got a 6,000 by let's bring that down to 1920 by 1080. Resample. Okay, press Control 0 to zoom back in. All right, so we should be a little faster here now. As you can see, my brush is huge for this canvas size, for this image size. I'm going to bring it down. All right, so anyway, what we have here is a 3D looking path drawn where the selection that I have up here in the mixer brush tool over there is at the last point that I drew with the brush. Now this is important because whatever you sample will show up as the last point that you draw with your brush. What you'll also notice is that the darker parts of the image are at the bottom and the lighter parts are at the top. That's because the way the mixer brush is interpreting this selection is that you have these lighter portions of the watercolor right here, and then these darker portions right here with the dark brownish bluish paint. So it's using those bright and dark areas to try to create shadows and highlights basically. And so it's almost as if the face right here, the last part of this curve, is moving through space. So it's first starting here, it's moving down to the right, that it's facing up, and then it's facing right, and then it's coming around and it's facing the same direction that it was in our selection. Now this is important to note because you can imitate different objects or different artwork facing different ways based on your selection. So I'll give you another example by sampling the girl's face. So let's hide that layer. Let's go to the woman's layer. Let's make my brush a little bigger so that I can get some more of her face. And let's try sampling right here. Whoops, pressing the space button instead. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to go to this top layer and I'm just going to draw something like this. I know that looks a little weird, but you can see what I'm talking about here. You see that I sampled the front of her face. Now in the picture, her face is facing forward. So the way this curve or this worm, let's just call it a 3D worm for right now. The way this 3D worms work is that make it look as if all of this was trailing her face. So it looks like she's facing forward at the end of the worm and all of the rest of it is bending to match that same perspective. So I hope that makes sense. But you'll start to see how this comes into play when we actually get into the artwork. So that's basically how the mixer brush works. You can sample regular colors, but you can also sample multiple colors and pixel and picture artwork. So now we're going to get into making this. So here's an abstract art I made using the mixer brush tool. It's actually really simple, but I think it came out pretty well. And you have this girl sitting on this this abstract curve thingy and two faces facing out at the top, and I thought it was pretty fun, pretty cool. I also added some shadows and reflections here at the bottom, and I added some shadows inside of the artwork, like to the left of the girl right here in this little crevice, and beneath her I just copied the shadows from her original picture to make this look a little bit more realistic. You also have some shadows right here to the right of her bush, our right, not her right, but our right there, just to make it look a little more realistic. Then I added some vignetting effects. So how did I actually create this effect? That's what we're going to dive into now. So here we are. This is the original picture, and the first thing we want to do is make a selection of the girl. So for that, I'm just going to go to select subject, let Photoshop work its magic. Oh, also, let me make sure my image size is small enough. 1080. Okay, yeah, 1080. All right. I don't want it to be lagging. Okay, so I'll press Control J to jump that to a new layer, and I'm going to name this woman. All right, select that layer again. This time I'm going to press L to get the lasso tool, and I'm going to just select the bottom parts beneath her to get those shadows, and these are going to come in handy in order for making our composite more realistic. So press Control J, and I'm going to name this woman shadow. All right, I'm going to set that blending mode to multiply. As you can see, it's already starting to take effect. And we're going to use blend if later to blend out some of the parts of the actual stool or the box she was sitting on. But we'll leave that for later. And then we're going to start getting, so one more thing. Let's create a solid color adjustment layer and sample the brightest parts of her jacket to get that bright pink. All right, perfect. And this is basically going to be the base, the starting point of our composite effect or of our artwork. So the next thing we're going to do here is create a new layer. And what I'm going to do is to create the path that we're going to use our mixer brush tool. Now, this is important because as you saw earlier when we were drawing these curves, my curves were pretty sloppy. Like these worms look like they were drawn by a 4-year-old. But what we're going to do is use curves and map the mixer brush to those curves. So we'll use the stroke path function to do that. So first, we're going to need some paths. So we're going to press P to get to the pen tool. We're going to click and hold, and then you're going to go to the curvature pen tool. Again, if you don't see that, you can go down to edit toolbar. That's not what I wanted to get to. That's not edit toolbar. I'm getting something crazy. So I'm going to click and hold and go to edit toolbar and get your curvature pen tool out of there. So I already have mine. So I already know where I want to draw my paths. So I'm going to do that on this new layer, and I'm going to call this path. All right. So let's start about right here, bottom of her hand. Go to about right here. Now, for some reason, my pen tool is not working. What's going on here? Oh, I have the quick selection tool on. Whoops. Well, that doesn't help much now, does it? Pen tool. Curvature pen tool. Yep, that explains that. So let's try that again. We're going to start right here. Here. I'm going to draw a point like right here in a butt. And then make some more points right here. 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 And something like that. All right, give or take, that's basically how I want it to be. It's going to be a little different than the original artwork because it's kind of hard to replicate exactly what you did the first time, but I'm going to click V to get back to the move tool just so I won't be drawing that path anymore. And now this is where the fun begins. So I'm going to go to paths. Now I have my path menu already over here on the right, but if you don't, go to window and then go to paths and you'll get the paths menu. Now I already have my paths in here, so I'm just going to click all of those and delete them. Yes. Oh wait, no, don't delete the one that I just created. Let's delete the other ones. Yay. And then let's go to this path that I just created. And I want to double click on it and I'm going to name it yeah, path 1. That'll be fine. Just so it'll be saved in here. If you don't name these paths will get deleted when you deselect them. Just a heads up. So what I'm going to do is click a blank space in the path menu just to deselect that path. Close that menu for now. Actually, we can leave it open. It's fine. We have plenty of canvas space. What I want to do is to go to the woman layer. And I'm going to press B to get back to my brush tool. It's already on the mixer brush. So I want a selection of the woman's face, basically her eyebrows down to her neck and a little bit of her jacket. So let's go hold Alt and click that. And let's check the selection, see if that works. Let me see. Yeah, that works for me. So you can always just paint a blank space to see how the end of your path is going to look. So that's how it's going to look. That's fine for me. I just need a little bit of the pink of her jacket for the effect we're trying to do. So let's go back up and let's go click that path. And now press Control O just to fit the canvas. Now I'm going to right click on this path and go to stroke path. And it's going to ask you which tool do you want to stroke the path with. So click on there and I'm going to go down to mixer brush. It's already set to mixer brush tool because I've done this like 1,000 times now. But you can use all types of tools to stroke a path. I want to stroke it with my mixer brush tool. All right, simulate pressure is fine. But actually, before we do this, go up here to this folder to get to brush settings. Now my brush settings are all the way over here, but let's just bring them over here for. Make sure your spacing is set to 1%. The reason I say that is because if your spacing is set greater than that, you're going to get all of these copy, and your path that you drew with the mixer brush tool is going to look real jaggedy. It's not going to look as smooth. Okay, so spacing 1%. Let's close that out and go back to paths. Right click on that path, stroke path with the mixer brush tool, and click OK. Boom. Now I want to make that a little bigger. I want to make my brush size to be 200. That's what usually works in here, in this canvas size. So let's do that again. Boom. Okay, perfect. Now, as you'll notice, let's deselect that path. Her face copy right here is blurry. So with the mixer brush tool still on and that layer selected, let's try to line it up with that and just dab right there. Boom. And you'll have a clear copy of her face. Now, here's what's fun. Because you save this path, you can come back and edit it. And let's just put this below the woman shadow layer for now. We're going to come back and deal with that later. But what I want to do is to create another layer above that main path. And I'm going to select, with this path selected, I'm going to put on my pen tool again, the curvature pen tool, and just press A real quick to get a direct selection tool and just drag over it so you see the points again. Now P for the pen tool, And I'm going to drag this last point like right here, because that's where the new head, we want the new head to be. So just so we don't corrupt this path, let's undo that, and let's right click and click on duplicate path, and let's call this path 2. Path 2. Okay, so now let's edit path 2 and click with the pen tool. Let's bring it down to about right here. Right click, stroke path, mixer brush tool, click OK. All right, and as we did before, deselect that path, click B for the brush tool, mixer brush, and just dab over that to make the face clear. Okay, so as you can see, we're already getting a pretty cool effect, and we haven't even done anything difficult yet. Hopefully you're breezing right through this with not too much trouble. If you are having trouble, just let me know in the comments what brought you trouble in this tutorial, and I'll be glad to help you sort through that. So now let's go into the next part of our tutorial. I want to create a pink swirl right here just beneath the woman so that it looks like it's a unique seat. I mean, you could do it perfectly fine. This may be fine for you. May be like, hey, Justin, this looks fine. I'm happy with this. You just rock my world. Like, this is fine for me, but I want to go a little further, and I just want to add some variety to this. So what we're going to do, let's name that path we just created to be path 2, and click enter. I want to create one more new layer, and I'm going to name this seat because this is where the lady is going to be seated. Also on this woman layer, where's the woman? That's Control or Command on a Mac. Click the thumbnail of the layer, create a layer mask, and then double click that layer mask to enter selected mask. What I want to do is scroll down to the bottom, click decontaminate colors, and click OK. That's just going to remove the white fringe from around her hair. As you can see, here's a before, and here, let's just zoom in so you can see it on her bush. Here's a before. You have that white halo around her bush, and here's the after. Okay, so let's zoom back out. And now on that new layer called seat, what I want to do is go back to the woman layer. Let's delete this woman copy right here. All right, go to the woman layer, press B for the mixer brush tool, and I actually want a selection of the woman's hoodie. I'm going to shrink my brush tool down, and I want a selection of this dark part and the light part. I actually want more of the dark part in my brush than the light part, so I'm going to select about right, hold Alt or Option on the Mac, and click right there. All right, I think that should work for me. Let me just dab and see. Whoops, not let me dab, so let's try this. Okay, yeah, that should work. Put my brush size back up to 200 before we stroke that path. And now, path 2, I'm going to right click on that duplicate path, and I'm going to name this seat. Click P for my pen tool and click on these points. I just want to delete most of these points except for the ones near the woman. So about right there should be fine. And I'm going to go to right click on that path, stroke path, mixer brush tool, and click OK. Boom. Now you can see how things are starting to get interesting. So let's click a blank space in that path panel, and we can close that for now. We're not really going to be using it again. So I'm going to click V to get back to my move tool. And now what I want to do is use the smudge tool in order to blend the seat and the path 2 layer. So let's click on smudge tool over here. It's this hand icon. If you don't see it, you can go down to edit toolbars like before. Click that smudge tool. And we're just going to begin smudging things. Actually, let's hold Alt or Option on the Mac. Click between the seat layer and the path 2 layer till you get this black down arrow. Click that just to clip it to the layer so it'll be more precise. Now with the smudge tool selected, we're just going to begin smudging things up. And you know, let's actually do this a different way. Click E to go to your eraser tool. We're actually going to delete all of the pink on this side of the lady. Let's do it how I did in the original artwork. And what we're going to do is to click on this path 2 layer and click the smudge tool. And we're going to begin to smudge. Whoops, that's not working. I know what I did last time. Click L for the lasso tool with the path to layer selected. Let's select this part right in there. Press Ctrl C. Create a new layer above the seat layer and press Ctrl Shift V or Command Shift V to paste it right into place. Now with the smudge tool, we're going to just smudge up some of this stuff, okay? All right. And I actually used a slightly different technique on my original, but for now, you get the gist of it for now. All right, so the next thing are just some compositing choices. So I'm going to add some shadow right here behind the woman on this path 2. So I'm just going to rename this layer to be Smudge. And then I'm going to create a layer above that and call it Head Shadow. And what I want to do is clip that as well. So let's clip all of these layers. Clip this. And click L for the lasso tool and just going to select this section about right here. With that head shadow layer selected, press G for the gradient tool, plus press D to get back to the default colors, black in the foreground, white in the background. And I'm going to click on this gradient first. Well, click it right here. I'm going to click the top slider on the right and change the opacity to 0%. That'll give us a black to gradient, a black to transparent gradient. Then I'm going to click in here and whoops, that is not right. Okay, let's go back in there and let's change this bottom color to black. All right, that should give us, yep, that's exactly what we're trying to do. I'm gonna Control D to deselect. Now you notice you're getting at this weird selection on the edge. What we want to do is just create a layer mask. Press B for the brush tool, hold and press it to get back to the regular brush tool. With black selected, we're just gonna paint on those edges. All right, it's gonna dab. You can also reduce the flow if you want to get a better effect right there. Let's bring the flow down to 5% and let's just. All right, there we go. It's a lot better. All right, got our shadows there. Now let's fix these shadows beneath the woman. The woman shadow. Let's clip those to the swirl layer, and let's use the create a layer mask. B, go back to that soft brush and let's just begin to erase a lot of this stuff right up in here. Yep. Then we're gonna double click on that layer and we want to drag the light parts of this layer right here. We're gonna hold Alt or Option on the Mac and click and drag that slider to break it apart. About right there. And we're gonna drag this slider here. All right. Now let's right click. Let's remove this clipping mask. Right click on this layer, convert to smart object. And I want to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Let's do about 5 pixels. That'll be fine for now. And then click on that layer, Control J to duplicate. It's going to duplicate it a few times. May want to make it even darker just to, you know, dramatize that effect. All right. And now for the finishing touches, we're going to create a drop shadow of the entire composite. And then we're going to create a reflection. So for the drop shadow and for a reflection, we're going to basically use the same technique. So first, starting at this path layer, hold Shift and click on the top layer to select all layers. Then press Control J to duplicate those. While they're still selected, while they're all still highlighted, right click and go to Convert to Smart Object. Press Control J to duplicate that. We're going to name one of them Shadow, and we're going to name the other Reflection. Shadow layer, let's right click it and let's go to rasterize layer. Hold Control or Command and click on the layer thumbnail. Press Shift Backspace and fill the contents with black. Now let's hide that reflection layer. All right, so this is what we get. Control D to deselect that. Now press Control T, right click, flip vertical. Whoops. And that's just bring this down. And you know what, actually, we can do it simpler than that. Let's delete that. That'll work for the reflection, but for the shadow, let's just use the circular tool, the ellipse tool. And we're going to create a black circle. Something like that. Let's bring it down a little. All right, we're going to call this ground shadow. Right click, convert to smart object, go to filter, Gaussian blur again. And let's make that maybe 25 pixels. Let's see, 35 maybe. Let's get ridiculous, 50. All right, I'm going to duplicate that, Control J, make the bottom one. Let's click on both of these, change the blend mode to multiply. Bring the fill down to about 50. Bring the fill of the bottom one down to about 15. And then we're going to click, press Control or Command T to open transform tools, and then drag this corner slider out about right there, just to give it a little bit more realism. All right, so there's before, there's the after. It's a slight little effect. Then this reflection layer, we're actually going to drag it below the second ground shadow. Turn that on. Press Control T to open transform tools. Right click, flip vertical, and bring that down. Right there. Double click it. Then we're going to go to filter, Gaussian blur again. Now also, if you're using the same filter, you can press Control Alt or Command Alt F to apply the last filter you use. So 50 pixels looks fine for me. Click OK, create a layer mask, press G for the gradient tool, and we want a basic gradient. We want the black to white, but we're actually going to change it, press X to change the foreground and background colors. And we want it white to black, so that way when we paint on the mask, white will show this reflection layer and black will hide it. So we're going to show it at the top and hide it at the bottom, something like that. Yep, it's perfect. Now it's time for the finishing touches. So I'm going to just group all of these layers and name that artwork. This one is going to be called background color, and this is the original photo. So just a quick before after. Here's the before, here's the after. Now let's add some finishing touches to really make this thing pop. So I'm gonna click adjustments and go to gradient, and I want to change the style to radial. I want it to be transparent to black, so let's click reverse and just put it to so that the girl is kind of in focus right here. Click OK. Now we're going to change the blending mode to color burn, and we're going to bring the fill down to something like 25. Very subtle effect, but here's okay. Yeah, I'm hardly seeing that. You're probably like, did it do anything? It's doing something. You just can't see it that much. All right, so maybe that's a little bit more noticeable. And then let's duplicate that and change the blending mode to linear burn. I just like to combine these two for a really dramatic effect. And we might want to bring that linear burn layer down to like 25%. Yeah, that's the one that needs to be done. Yeah, so that, yeah, I didn't want to go over the top. So this linear burn, we're actually going to hold Alt or Option on a Mac and drag that above the artwork layer to duplicate it. And we're going to bring the fill down maybe like 10% just to add a top lighting effect. No, actually, let's change this gradient. Let's change this to a black to white. And we want, yeah, black to white. And change the blending mode to overlay so that it brightens where the girl is and darkens where she is not. So maybe increase that effect a little. Like that. Sure, we can make it super dramatic. It's, you know, hey, what the heck? It's about having fun anyway, right? So anyway, there you have it. But that's how you use the mixer brush tool to create abstract 3D artwork in Photoshop. I hope you found this tutorial was helpful, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss my next tutorial. And until then, remember, take chances, make mistakes, and create something incredible. Have a blessed one.